Hello, I'm Alex Metricardi, Chief Marketing and Public Relations Officer for Living Branches, and today is Friday, September 25th. I'm here, of course, today with Ed Brubaker, Living Branches President and CEO. Hello, nice to see you.
Good to see you, Alex. And September 25, I think that means next week is October.
I don't know how that's possible.
I don't either. It's amazing. Time is flying.
It certainly is.
And we can't go trick-or-treating this year.
In Royersford, we officially announced that we are going to let people do whatever they want. So you can come to Royersford and trick-or-treat.
Oh, I can. Can I wear a mask, though?
You must.
Oh, okay. I guess a mask has a different connotation now on that.
I think it does.
On that subject, yes.
We'll have to start decorating. Well, we're a little bit lighthearted this morning, and it's a fine thing to be. We have good results to talk about from our testing in Harmony House. Perhaps you'd like to share that.
Yes, we do. We went through the process of testing, the 2-week process, the 14-day quarantine, shutting things down, and we were sad that we needed to do that, but we're very pleased that we were able to get through that testing. We had a staff member that was testing positive, which is why we needed to go into lockdown in the first place. And I'm glad to report that we didn't have anyone else who tested positive. Obviously, we still need to go through the protocols because you need to go through that quarantine process and get out of the incubation period. But it is a very good thing. I can't say exactly why that was, but I do know this. In the beginning of the pandemic, it was not until early April when the protocols changed to wearing a mask. And so we have been expecting and requiring that in those appropriate situations, of which they're mostly what we do at work is in that category, other than this filming where we can be distanced. But the fact of the matter is we're doing that. And I personally, I don't have the entire proof, but I believe that makes a huge difference. Does that mean it'll never happen again as a more of a larger breakout of COVID? I don't know. I'd like to think so, but we don't really know what the future holds. But I am pleased to say that it was one person and the rest were all clear and tested negative in all of the testing that we did, and you had to do 2 cycles. So it's very good news.
And I was especially pleased that now this is twice that we've had that result at Living Branches. So we had a case earlier this summer in Parkview where we had one person who tested positive and it didn't spread. And then we've just repeated that at Dock Woods.
Yeah, that's right. And we haven't done a study on it, so we can't say with 100% certainty. But when you look at what happened at the beginning and what happened now, and I'd like to think that we've learned. Yeah. And certainly mask wearing is a big part of that.
Agreed. So we're super pleased with those results. I do just want to say that we do continue to have a staff member at our Souderton campus who is experiencing COVID in this person's family. And we should still request prayers for that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very sad situation. Did not connect with us as far as contracting COVID. That's not where it originated. But yeah, very sad and challenging situation. And yeah, while we won't go into the details or the name here, if persons could remember them, that would be very helpful.
I think so. Also, more things that happened this week. I didn't get a lot of questions from residents, which I think is maybe an indication that this is kind of like the new norm and everybody's kind of chucking along with what they need to do. But one thing that happened this week that will be providing new information for us in the coming weeks is that DHS has released some revised guidance, especially around the issue of visitation. So maybe you talk a little bit about what our process is to digest that information, and then it's really interesting to see this coming out now.
Yeah, and we would have the coronavirus response team, of course, who would review these things ultimately, but we do have a reopening or an easing of restrictions task force that would work at those things. And basically what we do is we study what comes out from the state and determine how we want to implement those changes within our organization. And certainly it's positive news when we can reopen things. As we were talking before recording, it is interesting because just because something is allowed or things are eased doesn't necessarily mean that it's safe. We can't assume it's safe and that, oh, well, that means we don't have to worry about this or that. It just means that in balance, the risk-reward equation, if you will, given the surrounding communities and the risk profiles, that it makes some sense to ease it up. But we were also talking earlier too that, raising children, you can keep them safe. Life would be a whole lot more boring and uninteresting, but if you kept them in their house in a bubble, but that's no way to live either. And so this is really trying to continue to find that balance. But we also recognize that different people have different risk tolerances too. So I know people in the community that are still quarantining in their home, some of whom have real good reason to, others who are just feeling like that's the best thing to do. And then you have other people that go to events or rallies or whatever the case may be without masks on. And so you really have a disparate approach to it. So that's the challenge sometimes, because we have residents, particularly in healthcare or personal care, who their own personal risk profile may be different than what the state's requirements are. And so living within that and trying to make sense of it becomes part of the challenge, because it's the reality of living in communities that have regulatory bodies overseeing them. And so we just need to continue to work at it, recognizing that there's always going to be that tug and pull. But we absolutely want to find ways that the restrictions that are in place can be eased, because it's important to the health and well-being, the emotional health and well-being of those that live here.
Yeah. And so we have that happening on one hand. And on the other hand, we're seeing news out of Massachusetts that people are being criminally charged in nursing homes for allowing COVID to spread. So
right, and I think I'm not sure if it was a VA home or where, but there were 78 people that died there, which sounds like a lot, and it is a lot. But I suspect it was a couple hundred beds in their facility. I didn't read the details of the story, but it just makes you wonder and think about things when you read things like that. I don't know anything of the details of that until I read it. But, it's that balance, because frankly, those of us who are conscientious, and I believe we have a lot of conscientious people in Living Branches, so we're certainly not purposefully doing things incorrectly, but it does cause some anxiety around that when you read what's happening in the industry. But having said that, I'm not going to pass judgment on that other than to say, reading those things, it does affect your psyche as well, because you never want to do those things that create a lack of safety for our residents. But we do need to balance the risk and reward equation as well.
Mm-hmm. And then to add in, I think for us, we're all, at least I know the conversations that we have in our community or in our coronavirus response team meeting, and with others in our Living Branches community, like what is best for the residents is always at the heart of every question that we're asking. But when you then say, oh, and now we have, government oversight, government opinions, government ideas coming in, and they seem to change a bit, it makes people a little nervous.
Yeah, it does. And we're just trying to navigate through that. And I think the best way to do that is through the wisdom of more than just one person. The wisdom of a group can discern that. And I think that's why it's very helpful to have different people around the table, frankly, on the coronavirus response team. And I suspect it would be no surprise to people that you might be less risk adverse than others on the team. And so you advocate for that side, and that's very helpful. And it's helpful to have the persons that say, well, no, wait a minute, what about this? And so together we can really find what that appropriate place is.
That feels good. I suppose it's also, I guess, good news, if you will, that we should announce that we're kind of getting to the point with these videos where it seems like it's an appropriate time to maybe shift our schedule of video releases.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we had been doing these almost every week for quite a few weeks now, and sometimes you weren't available or I wasn't available. So it wasn't 100% every week, but things are changing. The newness of the situation is not there. Kind of announcing the new things that are happening are not there. So we're looking at going to biweekly, and I may only come once a month, just because we want to keep people informed. Absolutely. But even when we have a situation like at Harmony House, we kind of have the protocols down. We have the communications processes there and ready. And so it's not something we have to announce as something new. It's just invoking what we have in place. And so, yeah, all good things come to an end or come to a place of change. And we just need to keep working at that and looking at that. Absolutely want to continue to keep people informed, though. But the new information is not as much rapid fire as it had been early on in the pandemic.
So we'll go ahead and we won't have a video next week. We'll be back the week after that. If there's anything that's emergent, of course, we'll send out emails and put information on our website. And of course, if anyone has specific questions, please feel free to email them to coronavirusquestions@livingbranches.org. But it feels good to kind of be out of the churn and excitement of this, and now it's just sort of settling into, we know what we're doing, and you know what we're doing, and here we are.
Yeah, and it's really, we're certainly, by saying this is far from over. We're 6 months in, and I've said, much to people's chagrin probably at times, it could be another 6 months or more. But it's like anything in life. When you experience a crisis and then it becomes something you live with for the long term, you get acclimated, and it becomes the new reality that you need to deal with. And so it's not over by any stretch of the imagination. It's still serious. We still need to pay attention, but it's more paying attention within life goes on, and we have a much better sense of what we're doing at this point.
Yep, absolutely. So, well, thank you, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.